real. Things are different. This isn't training anymore. And it being combat arms like I was, it wasn't, I wasn't just sitting on a fob, a forward operating base. I wasn't just, sitting inside the wire protected all the time. We left a lot, and we spent a lot of time in the mountains. And I still remember it was my sister's birthday is May 5th. It's, a pretty significant day in my life, but it's also the day I lost my first brother.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Knight's Path podcast. Matt Patrick Kelly here, your host, and today we have a very special guest. Super stoked to talk to him, get to know him better, and hear about what he's up to. But Chris Celeste, welcome for being on the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. It's an honor to be on here, and I know the caliber of business owner veterans that you bring onto this show, and it's truly just an honor to be amongst those caliber of people.
Absolutely. Well, you're stepping up the game too. In my opinion, it's like, oh man, Chris is going to be on the show. This adds so much juice. So I appreciate it, brother. So before we dive into, all the crazy things, let's talk about your life and, your experiences and what kind of got you up to this point. What part of the country you grew up in, what you were into growing up, where high school, and then what you did after that, because you've got an exciting story and tale to tell. So I'm all ears, brother.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll start back, where I'm from, what I was into, kind of the childhood side of things. And so I was born and raised in a little small town in upstate New York, a town called Catskill. That's where I spent the first 17 years of my life. I had a really good childhood. My father kind of always had that hustler's mentality, not always on the right side of the law all the time, but always had that hustler's mentality. And, most of my childhood that I can really remember, he was on the straight and narrow. He owned apartments and he did sales and all sorts of things. So I did have, the idea of what hard work, working for yourself, things like that could do for you. But for me, I just wanted to have fun, right? I was a young kid. So growing up, I was really into snowboarding and quadding, things like that. I actually made most of my money growing up either lifeguarding in the summer or teaching snowboarding in the winter.
Nice.
So like I said, I had a really good childhood growing up, nothing really to complain about. Parents stayed together until after I got hurt in Afghanistan. And so there was really a lot of good memories back then. Had a really good core group of friends. Life was good. Didn't really enjoy school very much. It bored me. So the idea of going to college was never really on my mind. Although it was forced on me, like most people in society, get good grades, go to college so you can be a functioning member of society and be successful. But for me, it didn't make sense. Again, I grew up in a really small town. So although my life was really good, there wasn't really much to do. And because of that, I got into drinking pretty early. I was in the woods, bonfires with the boys at like 15 years old.
Me too, brother.
Yeah, so you understand.
Yeah, small town, man. Small town, Texas.
Yep. And so, I started chasing girls and having fun and drinking with the boys. And so the idea of being responsible, going to school, holding down a regular 9-to-5 job, these things just didn't appeal to me. Mm-hmm. And because of that lifestyle I was starting to lean towards, my parents saw that and they were like, well, we're not going to pay for you to continue down this path. So you can either go to a community college and straighten out your life, or we're not gonna help you. And at that time, like I said, college wasn't going to be a thing for me. And it just so happens that an Army recruiter happened to call me within the month of all of this happening, and I really loved what he had to say. 9/11 had just happened not too long before that. I graduated high school in 2005, so I was actually in high school when all that happened. I grew up in New York. I had family in the World Trade Center. And so for me, it hit home. It was a thing for me where I was angry. I was angry at what had happened. And when I had no clear future and that phone call happened, I was like, well, this must be the path forward. This must be what I'm supposed to do. And so at 17 years old, I had my parents sign the waiver and I joined the Army at 17 as a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. And so
Okay.
that's really where I'm from, you know, what I was into leading up to me ultimately leaving home.
Okay. So you sounds like you got some hustler blood in you from the get-go when you were making your money lifeguarding, and then you were also teaching people how to snowboard. So also from a young age, it sounds like you kind of because I know you want to help people. We'll get into that, but you know, kind of that mentorship. But that was from a young age. If you're teaching people how to snowboard, and then you're also getting a little pocket change on the side, that's awesome. So how like so being in the military, what did you do? Like that had to be from a small town. It had to be like, holy crap, culture shock. You know, you're traveling places, and you know, at that time, it was, hey guys, you're training up because you're getting ready to go do some real world shit over there. And I imagine there was a level of, you know, pucker factor, right? And then, you know, just kind of tell me, you know, tell me what you want to share, and you know, some of the highlights. We don't have to get too spooky, scary, and deep, but you know, it's obviously life changing, the things that you've seen and dealt with, and what sticks. And then, you know, obviously when you're forged in something like that, you come out a different person than what you want to do. So let's just kind of highlight that, and then we're going to talk about, you know, what your physical, mental, and spiritual game, brother. But yeah, let's talk about your military career if you don't mind.
Yeah, we can dive in for sure. You know, it's funny you just mentioned something, and I just want to touch on it really quick. You know, I've been a teacher basically my whole life, and I didn't look back and learn this and notice the through line of what I love and my passion until about 4 years ago, when I actually had the chance to start doing a lot of inner work. So it's kind of crazy that you had noticed it just from a simple conversation that it took me 30 years to figure out.
Right.
Is that, you know, that's kind of what I'm called here to do. But you know, for me, and you also had mentioned it was a different time in our history, right? And very few veterans or even active duty soldiers join the military at a time when we're actually in conflict, where we're actually in a theater of war. And I do remember getting to my basic training, just being a 17-year-old kid. And within not even being there a full hour, you know, we're getting shark attacked, we're getting off the bus, all these things are happening. And, you know, they're telling us, like, you know, you are going to die. Like, there's 100% chance that when you leave basic training, you are going to a unit that will deploy within a year. Like, you will see combat, whether you want to or not, whether you believe it or not. This is what's going to happen to you. And I remember that being like, whoa, things just got real.
Yeah.
And it was like, we had guys go AWOL that night. Like, things were getting crazy because I don't think it really had hit any of us yet.
Right.
You know,
well,
that
shit,
like,
you're 17 too. I mean, crap.
Yeah. But then again, you know, it was a huge culture shock as well. And one of the most, I would never trade it for anything in the world. It was the biggest and most impactful growth experience of my entire life. Going from this small town, think I know it all, big ego, 17-year-old kid, because I've been living on top of my small pond forever.
Yeah.
And then I get thrown into the ocean with other guys who've been living on top of their ponds, or been, you know, living in the mix, or going through the school of hard knocks their whole life. And it's just like that complete culture shock when you throw us all together. But as all veterans know, you know, we're bonding through some of these, you know, traumatic experiences that we're being forced through, so that when we get to combat, they're not so traumatic to us. And so, you know, I made friends with people I would never in a million years have talked to if I wasn't in the military. You know what I'm saying? Or never even had the opportunity to talk to. I grew up, I mean, my town, I had no African-American people in my town, zero. I had 3 Hispanic people. 2 of them were my friends, but like, we had one Asian woman who joined my school a year before I graduated, right? So I grew up in just a sea of white people. So I didn't really have the experiences or even the know-how to like deal with other cultures. So it was weird at first. Look, I'm fortunate I wasn't raised to hate somebody for the color of their skin or their beliefs or their sexual orientation. So it wasn't that big of a shock, but it was still something that I had to adapt to, that I was thrown into. That was really, you know, eye-opening, and again, one of the best growth experiences of my life. You know, I think that that's another reason why I I do what I do today, and I lead with my heart in everything I do.
Yeah.
Is that I just know what's inside of us. I know what's in here, and that to me it makes us, we're all one part of the human race. So that was my big thing when I first got to basic. Again, I was a Cavalry Scout, combat arms. So when I finished up basic training, I went straight to my OSET, straight to my advanced infantry training. And then the guys that I trained with there, I actually was very fortunate to have two of them actually go to my unit with me.
Oh, nice.
So it wasn't too, like, after that initial culture shock, there wasn't too much of a big culture shock until we actually boots down in Afghanistan, right? That's when it was like, okay, things are real, things are different. This isn't training anymore. And it being combat arms like I was, it wasn't, I wasn't just sitting on a FOB, a forward operating base. I wasn't just, sitting inside the wire protected all the time. We left a lot, and we spent a lot of time in the mountains. And I still remember it was my sister's birthday is May 5th. It's, a pretty significant day in my life, but it's also the day I lost my first brother.
Wow.
It was a helicopter, not even a combat related situation. We had high winds. We're down in a canyon. We had really high winds coming through, over 60 miles an hour. The TOC decided it was a good idea to send the helicopters anyway, even though they knew it wasn't safe. And before we could even get the first helicopter loaded, gust of wind came, smashed the Chinook against the side of the mountain, and it just boom, tumbled, exploded. And we lost our lieutenant colonel. We lost one of my really good friends. And I think that right there is when it really hit, like, oh shit, like, people, we're not all walking away from this one. Like, we're just not walking away from this. Now, all of us are going to go home. And long story short, over the next several months, we ended up losing 7 more of our really close friends. Only myself and another person, James Patterson, actually made it home from our unit. And both of us almost didn't even make it. I flatlined and was on life support in Germany for over a week due to unknown chemical agent that shut off my lungs. And my buddy Patterson, he was in a really bad vehicle accident where he actually was tossed from the vehicle and had a fence, like he had a permanent bruise right through here, even through his Kevlar, even through everything. It hit him so hard that he had this purple welt that went right through here from when he hit up against the metal part of the fence. Like, it was almost crushed his ribs and it was nuts, but we survived, man. And we made it home. And honestly, dude, that's when the real horror started.
Yeah, I bet. He's the first guy I interviewed in my podcast, and he's a SWAT buddy of mine, and he did it for 22 years, and he got into a shooting in Dallas, and that very same night that he got in a shooting and he lived, there was another officer that died. So it was a really fucked up night, right? And just recently, he and I have gotten closer since that podcast, and we're staying connected, which is a blessing for that. But he was really kind of deep diving in on me about survivor's guilt, and I imagine you and your buddy had a shit ton of survivor's guilt if y'all were the ones that made it out. And fuck, I can only imagine. A lot of shit's happened to you. So I mean, like, when we get into the mental and spiritual game, this is great for me. It's great for people to hear. It's great for you to share, and any of our audience members, especially based on your mission and you wanting to help vets and stuff. I mean, I haven't met a vet that's been over there that isn't willing to say, hey, anybody that's struggling, pick up the friggin' phone, call me, man. Right. And I know that's where your heart is. So this is fantastic that you're sharing. But dude, that was just crazy talking about, buddy, about survivor's guilt. And then, the one thing I will say when you were telling this story is, they decided to go ahead and bring in those choppers under high winds and potentially dangerous conditions. But shit, you had a lieutenant colonel on that chopper. He wasn't, that's high brass. And he's like, shit, if he didn't think it was doable, he wouldn't have been on that friggin' chopper, I would imagine. But that's balls, and that shows kind of the leadership that you were around. It's where you got a light colonel on that chopper to try to pick up his guys. So that's fucking fantastic, dude. I imagine you just met so many heroes, and you got so many examples just of what men are and what how they act and how they behave, and what your brother in arms are and everything else. But dude, I know you had to be in shape, right? So let's just
Yeah.
kind of, before we get into some heavy shit, mental and spiritual, but when you were growing up as a kid, how was your workout? What was it like? And then, shit, you're 17, you're over there, I imagine, you almost had to be in shape by hook or crook. It was like, fuck, I got to be in shape because this is my job. Tell us
Yeah,
about that struggle, dude.
that's basically, I mean, I lucked out, right? Growing up, I was always extremely athletic: baseball, snowboarding, football. I had to eat like 3 dinners a day just to keep up with the amount of like energy I was burning when I was growing up. So like, I had a really fast metabolism. I was always eating, but I was always moving and going. So I was really strong, really fit. Before I got injured and ultimately the steroids and all that, and I gained all the water weight and everything happened, I was 197 pounds. I'm 5'11", and I was feeling real strong. I was feeling real strong back then.
Yeah.
And like I said, I kind of lucked out, right? So the MOS, the job I picked inside the military, required me to be very physically fit, right? So infantry, scouts, anybody who's walking that much and constantly on the move, your PT is usually at some point during the week, you're running 10 miles, right? And I had Staff Sergeant Hayes, who was Fort Drum's like record-breaking runner. He was the guy who was winning all the awards. So when we trained, it was like you trained. So, like I said, I've been fortunate. I've always had leadership or circumstances and experiences in my life that have allowed me to stay relatively fit up until I ultimately got injured. And then took me a long time to start getting back into the rhythm of things, and then blew my knee out, had to have surgery, and then, bounce back. So, for me, the mental and the physical part of it has always just come naturally. When I was younger, it was just like the perfect storm of experience, circumstance, and leadership, my parents, everybody around me, that kind of just made it like a breeze, basically. It's when like I said, the real horror, the real hard part for me started in February of 2007, when I actually left the military. That's when I lost the ability to stay mentally strong. That's when I didn't care about my physical body anymore. That's when my spirituality went out the window, right? So I'm not a big, religious as in like go to church every Sunday, but I do believe that there is some guiding force that kept me alive, that has allowed me to do the things I've done in my life, and that chose me to be here today among others who were not, right? So there has to be a reason behind it all, right? It's not just chaos. But I was really angry at whatever that thing was, whatever that power is, right? And as you touched on it, it all comes down to survivor's guilt. It's, why do I get to be here if they don't? Do I deserve to be here? I'm not nearly a hero like them. Like, why did they have to go and not me? When I look at it, I got the honor of serving with some of the greatest people I've ever met. And I didn't even hold a candle to some of those guys. And for me to be the reason, like for me to be here and them not to be, is just like, I had almost a decade of battling with that before it got to a point where, and we can touch on it a little bit deeper, but I had to rewrite the story that I was telling myself. It wasn't, I don't deserve to be here. It's they sacrificed their life, and I better do everything in my power to show the honor and the sacrifice that they made for me, to respect that and honor that, and do everything I can to live my best life, to create what they're unable to create now because of that sacrifice. And so it trust me, I didn't think like that for a long time, but I finally got there. And that's honestly one of the main driving forces behind what I do today in business.
Yep. So thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, it's outside looking in, it's easy to say, hey, what would your buddies say if they could talk to you now? Hey, take the most of this opportunity. But when you're working through all the shit in your head, it's easier said than done. And it's easy for, armchair psychologists to sit back and go, oh, this is what this person needs to do or whatever. But when you're living it, I had identity crisis when I got out of the police work, and I was like, fuck, I'm a citizen. I don't know what the fuck to do. And that pales in comparison to being in a theater of war across country, coming and doing that. So I can only imagine, the identity crisis. But let's kind of talk about, because I think like when you and I met, and just some background, Chris and I met at a seminar called Insight, run by Todd Campbell in Colorado. It's a great event. He's got a really amazing stage presence. We can talk about where he wants to go. He's got this deep booming voice that can fill up. He doesn't even need a mic, but anyway, he's got a really good command presence. It was impressive, but yeah, we met there, and what you want to do. But you shared a story when you kind of got up on stage and you were introducing yourself and you were talking to us about starting a job and hustling and what that and it seemed successful on the surface, right? But then your 2-year-old boy said something to you that just kind of like kicked you in the nuts, and that was another fucking wake-up call, right? And now it's it sucked at the time, but it was one of the greatest things that could ever happen to you, right? Because look what that trajectory caused you to do and what you're doing now. So kind of retell that story, and then let's go to all the fucking awesome, great things that you're trying to do, brother.
Yeah. And let me just back it up for a second to understand that. So, when I first got out of the military, they had me on 11 pills a day, which I found through dealing with a lot of veterans, that's actually on the low side. I talked to veterans that take anywhere from 11 to 20 pills in a single day. Some of them, are 1 in the morning, 1 at night, but throughout the 24-hour period of time, they're ingesting anywhere from 11 to 20 pills that are prescribed to them by the VA. And in my personal situation, I was actually taking some of those medications just to counteract the side effects from other medications they were giving me, right? So it was like this crazy, not best treatment plan, in my opinion, right? It was not conducive to a healthy life or good mental stability or trying to get your life together. It's constantly keeping your emotions in flux, and it's really hard to do anything. And so it was a long journey for me, about 6 years. I finally got off those pills, was able to move to Arizona, got my medical marijuana card, which was how I got rid of a lot of those pills. Still have to take my seizure med. Otherwise, I can't have a license because I have a TBI that causes me to have seizures. So I still take that pill, but I have my medical marijuana card. And so I started to get my life together. I started to be able to think a little bit more clearly again. And I'm starting to have a little bit less survivor's guilt and a little bit more of that like pull inside of me, where it's like you can't just keep collecting disability, Chris. You can't just keep feeling sorry for yourself. Like there's something you're supposed to be doing. And I kept feeling the pull, but I didn't know where it was taking me. And so I actually was at a barbecue, a friend's house. We were all hanging out. Good friend of mine, my best friend, he was like, I want to start a business, but I don't want to do it by myself. He's like, I know auto glass or repair and replacement inside and out, like the back of my hand. He's like, but I don't want to do that, like the office stuff. He's like, will you start a business with me? And in my mind, I'm the last person you want to start a business with. Right. I'm like, I got out of the military at 19 and I have no real world skills. Like I know reconnaissance. That's what I know. I know recon. And so I like talked over with my wife, and I'm like, my buddy Adam, he's pitching this idea to me, and she was like, I think you should do it. Like just cold face, no wavering. I think you should do it. And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, no, you'd be really good at it. She's like, I think you should do it. And so between him asking me and her confidence, I finally decided, you know what, enough of this. I'm gonna pull the trigger and start this auto glass business, which is where the story starts from what you were talking about.
Yeah, thanks for the background, brother.
Yeah, and so the auto glass business is my first trip into entrepreneurship. It's traditional style business, service-based business. We're going to people's homes and fulfilling on repairs or replacements. I'm doing logistics. I'm doing ordering. I'm dealing with vendors. I'm doing all these different things. And what's crazy, and for anybody watching this who has dealt with PTSD or anxiety, that by picking up this little thing and putting it to your ear, sometimes it wants to fall out of your hand because your hand's sweating so much. Your heart's just like pounding out of your chest. Sometimes you can't even speak because the words are just stuck right here. That was me trying to run a business from my phone using Google to figure out how to actually run a business because I have no college or business training. And so I dove into it. And for that whole first year, I was just a slave to it. But it was worth it because I learned a lot of really awesome lessons. I learned, one, that my PTSD isn't going to stop me, that anxiety goes away the more I do something. and that it's just really the fear of the unknown, the fear of or a story I'm telling myself about a past experience that reminds me of what I'm going into now, right? Which is why fear would pop up. And so I started to like slowly change myself in that first business, which kind of opened up everything I have today. And like you said, I was starting to have really good success in that business, but I was basically a ghost to my family. I was never around. I was literally sending them on vacations without me. And so long story short, we're about a year and a half into that business. I'm in my home office, much like I am right now, just different home. And I'm just doing invoices. I have music on YouTube in the background, just normal day at work. And my son walks in, he's 2 at the time. He's much older now. He walks in and he's like, "Daddy, why don't you ever want to play with me?" Or "Daddy, why don't you play with me?" is what he said. And I just lost it. I lost it. I didn't, as I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, I own my own home. I have my own business. I'm married. Like my kids are healthy and happy. Everything on the outside looks good. On paper, I'm really successful. I'm doing the right thing. But on the inside, I am broken and I am hollow, and I am not even a member of the family unit that I am doing everything for.
Right.
And in that moment, just a perfect storm, if you will, I just start bawling my eyes out. I'm just trying to figure out, like, where the hell did I go wrong? Like, I'm successful. Like, I own a business. Like, why does my son think I don't want to be around him, like, or play with him? Like, what other stories is he telling himself? Does he not think I love him? Like, all these things are going through my mind, and I'm starting to like really lose myself in it. And the music that I was listening to on YouTube actually turns off, and an ad pops on. And it's a gentleman. I won't talk about the company or the name. They don't even exist anymore. But they start telling me about online marketing, about how, the internet's the future and that's where everyone's attention is. And if you're not marketing online, then you're leaving money on the table. And I'm like I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching this, and I'm like, is this providing me the answer right here, right now in front of me as I'm sitting in my deepest moment? The universe is literally like, here you go. Pay attention. This is for you. And so I had to take it seriously. And I'm like, I already spend days at this computer doing logistics, ordering all these different things, planning out the routes for our drivers. And I'm like, what would happen if I flipped the script and I actually started having that time, my return on investment, go way through the roof on the time I'm actually spending? And I was like, this has to be the answer. And so I went to my wife and I'm talking to her about it. And I'm sure, as many of your listeners probably can relate to, anytime someone starts giving you the exact answer and there's no downside to it, it just seems too good to be true. And you're like, all right, red flags are going up. Well, that happened when I brought it to my wife. And my wife's like, that can't be real. Like, that can't be real. Like, people are not really making that kind of money. There's got to be some sort of catch.
Right.
And unfortunately, in a lot of places out on the internet, there is, right? Yeah. So you, me, and some other fortunate people out there have found really good places to call home. Yeah. And so, this is one of those situations where I actually found a reputable place to call home. And so I ended up investing significant money, well over $10,000 into that program, to get access to education, mentorship, everything that I would need to truly be successful. And being an entrepreneur already and going from one business model onto a digital business model, I knew the amount of hours and stress and things that went into like figuring that out. And so for me to spend a little bit of extra money to save myself that time and that headache was well worth it. Well worth it to have someone literally tell me, this is what you need to do, and then I can go do it, instead of having to spend days on YouTube and Google to try to find the information. And then maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's outdated, maybe, there's so many variables there. And so for me, that's where I started my online journey. I dove all into that company. I ended up becoming top earner for that company for 2 years, was on top of their leaderboard, got all sorts of, appreciation and things like that. And when the first time that company allowed me to speak on stage to share my story, I had no intention of building a veteran organization at the time. I had no intention of doing what I do today. Literally, I was just trying to find a way to be present in my family and provide them a good life. That was all I was looking for back then. But when I got on stage and I shared my journey and I shared, how I went from disability to making well over, $250,000 in my first 9 months in that company and going on to do so much more. And I'm sharing that, and I'm talking about the drug addictions from the 11 pills a day and the destruction I was causing in my life, and the PTSD and the anxiety, and having to actually run out of Walmart because I couldn't, I felt like the world was caving in on me. I couldn't even go shopping for myself. And I just shared it openly and just honestly. And I just wanted to be, just give people the opportunity to get to know me. And when I got off that, I got a standing ovation, which I thought they were just being nice because it was my first time speaking. But when I got off the stage, the line of people, like, you couldn't even see the end of it. It went down and around the corner. And the people that came up to me and spoke to me, most of them were veterans, or they knew a veteran, or someone first responder, someone who knows what it is to sacrifice for the greater good of everyone else. And so they were just like, I know my uncle, my brother, my cousin, myself personally, who is so inspired by your story, by your journey, who could use what you're doing. And this like light bulb went off in me. And I was like, this is the answer. Like, when I was that disabled veteran sitting on the couch, playing video games, watching reruns of Survivor, and smoking weed all day, thinking there was no future for me, this could be that future for people. This could be that future that allows that veteran who's missing a limb, or PTSD is so bad they can't actually go out and work, but they can leverage a skill set from the comfort of their home, not even have to show their face if they don't want to, and actually earn an income. And I was just like, wait a second. This is, again, like, nothing happens by chance. I'm following this path, and these signs keep getting put right in my face, like big neon sign, pay attention, pay attention. So that's when I decided right there and then that was going to be what I was going to do with these skills. I've been able to set myself financially, locate geographically, all these true freedom using the skill sets of digital sales and marketing. And, it is the future. It applies to every business model, every type of business out there. And so I can't think of a better entrepreneur to change the world than veteran business owners. And so if I could dedicate my life, I have a business partner, I'm not alone on this. And we've dedicated our lives to helping other veterans create success post-military using their own business, not having to answer to a boss or ask for time off or wait for a government check. And in some cases right now, they're even taking them away from veterans. It's insane, without any notice, without any kind of, due course. They're just pulling disability from people. And so, it's a scary, scary time. And if we can give them any kind of security, stability, and hope for the future, then we're doing something worthwhile. And for me, it has definitely, again, when I first started in entrepreneurship, I never once thought that this was going to be where I ended up, but now it has truly become a calling and a life's mission.
That's awesome. So there's, man, that was fantastic. There's so much gold in there that I'm sitting here jotting notes. And one thing about the military is, too, with the VA and all the meds. So my karate instructor, he was my master, and he created his own system, and I ended up inheriting it from him. He passed it down to me before he ended up passing away. But he was a Vietnam veteran, first Cav Army, and he was always popping pills, and he would go to the VA to make sure that his disability stayed at that certain percentage, and he was always stressing out about it because, shit, what if they took it away? That's money in his pocket, and he was very dependent. But it's amazing. It's crazy to know that story. And then, and that was early 90s, mid 90s, when he went in, like, throughout the whole time I knew him. I met him, I think, in 93 or 94, but they're treating the symptoms and not the cause, right? And then for you also to hone in and, like, through your own journey, your baptism of fire, in knowing what you felt and openly sharing it. But everybody wants to feel self-worth, and everybody wants to be self-sufficient. So you're exactly speaking to the folks. It's like, hey, have some self-worth. You be able to wipe your own butt and blow your own nose and not need to be dependent on other folks. And this is the path, and this is the way, that one of the, there's many trails to the top of the mountain. You've chosen one for a certain amount of group, and you can speak to them. And I think they all want that. I think most people want that if they're going to be honest with themselves. I certainly wanted it. I'm in the corporate grind, and I know that my ceiling's only so high because there's so much competition to get to those upper tier levels, and it's still not fulfilling. I tell people, in my corporate, and I'm like, I've been in the safety field after law enforcement for 15 years, as a manager, but it's like all my jobs are the same. They'll let me work as many hours as I want and still pay me the same. So that's kind of the joke.
Yeah.
That, hey, your salary, we're going to work you to death. But let's talk about OVF and your organization, and of course for the audience and the folks, we're going to put all Chris's stuff down and how you can get a hold of him, how you can follow him, get in touch with him in the description of this podcast. But tell us what you got going on, brother.
Yeah, so OVF is short for Operation Veteran Freedom. We love our acronyms, so we play to that. It's myself and a amazing I'm Army Navy veteran. His name's Liam Weisner. He is my partner inside of Operation Veteran Freedom. He and I met through my marketing, right? It's an amazing, powerful skill. I was advertising for a affiliate offer that I apply my skills to earn a little extra side cash. And he happened to see that ad and reached out to me. COVID and he has a back injury from the military. So, kind of shut him down. So he couldn't do his door-to-door sales anymore. And so he was looking for a way to keep that steady stream of leads coming in and keep selling without having to actually go out and do it, because he couldn't. And so he saw what I was doing and he reached out to me and he was like, hey, listen, I want to figure out a way to automate what I'm doing. So he ended up becoming a student of mine. And I taught him how to build funnels, and he just took to it like water. And he was one of those people that was like really, really hungry. And so he was constantly showing up, constantly making improvements. And it got to a point where I was running those affiliate offers to just build up some more income, because I had been investing all of my income into building the veteran business. And so I needed to refill that income a little bit. So as I was doing that, I met him, and then I'm getting ready to really dive back into the veteran business, to really, pour myself and the income we just made back into that. And I was like, is there any veterans, because I had a pretty big veteran organization, being who I am and how I branded myself, under me. And I said, hey, listen, are any of you guys interested in doing something serious for the veteran community? You guys don't need any previous experience. I'll teach you what you need to know, but you have to be dedicated. You have to be willing to show up and do what's necessary, because if you're not, I'm cutting you from the team instantly. Liam was the only person who was serious about it, rose his hand. And at first we weren't really partners in the thing, but he definitely showed up and earned that spot. And so he is full-fledged partner inside OVF now. And so we started Operation Veteran Freedom, fully launched it to the public August of last year. So we're coming up on a full year that we've been in business. And we're over 2,000 members strong. And we've just recently, last June 10th, we had our first member make over $1 million using our education.
Nice. Yeah. That's amazing. Holy shit.
It's been, honestly, we're all still kind of trying to is it real kind of thing? Cause it's wow. And let me it's a perfect storm. I don't want anybody listening to think that they're going to be able to do what I'm about to say. I don't ever want to put false expectations in anyone's mind. It always comes up to your work ethic and who, there's a lot of variables folks, in there.
All these, hey, man, you got to work your ass off. You got to know what the fuck you're doing. No bullshit. But
Absolutely. So this gentleman, he is in the real estate and foreclosure niche. He started his business 4 months ago. He joined Operation Veteran Freedom. We talked to him for a little while. He was very doubtful, very reluctant. We worked with him on some mindset training, which is a heavy part of what we do. Obviously, that's how you met me, working with Todd on the mindset side of things. And so we were working with him. He finally pulled the trigger, launched his business, had a really crazy thing happen with his son, diagnosed with really terminal illness, and all these things are happening. So he's got this business that he just started. He's got ads running. He's got everything running on autopilot, and he's at the hospital, and he gets a message on his phone that he just made $87,000. And so he hits me up and he was like, I cannot believe what just happened. He's like, I'm literally at the hospital with my son right now. And he's like, and an ad that I just put up yesterday, not even 48 hours ago, just made me an $87,000 sale. I just made $87,000 today. And I was like, dude, congratulations. Focus on your son. That money will be there. You've got a system that works. Not even a month later, he hits me up. Another contract, $490,000. Then just back in June, he lined up something. I can't give you the specifics because it's government related, but you're talking like, I think it's like 3.7 million for the contract. So he's made $6.8 million in the last 4 months, and he's only spent $12,000 in Facebook ads.
Woo, let that sink in, people. Holy shit. So, Chris, for you out there that might be listening, maybe can help you out if you're looking for some shit. Right. So, vets, I mean, there might be some people that, is it all vets? Is it anybody? Who can reach out to you?
Right. So we are veterans only. We work very closely with first responders, which a lot of our first responders are also veterans, either National Guard or they have served full time at some point. So there's a lot of crossover there. We initially, when we started the vision, it was everybody. The 1% who are willing to sacrifice for everybody else was the vision. Right. So first responders are definitely involved in that. But our primary focus right now has just been either service members who are transitioning out or veterans themselves who own a business, so that we can help them to really get those things, into the digital age and really starting to get those results they're looking for. But yeah, it's we have a very strict, you have to have served to be a part of what we do.
No, that's fine. And that's the thing for anyone that wants to start their own business. You got to really you really need to break down who you're going to serve and how you're going to affect those people in a positive way, because otherwise you get scattered, and you got to be missile-toned and locked, and you got to have some focus on who you're going to help and what it's going to mean to you. So it's worth it to you as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because we talked about the guy Chris Wilson who just made that 6.8 million, and we actually just did an interview with him just last night, kind of celebrating that success. I was on vacation, obviously, when he did that, so I wanted to celebrate him through the whole community. So we did that last night, and we were talking to him, and oh shoot, sorry man, I just lost my complete train of thought. What were we just saying?
So we were talking about missile tone and lock, your niche, and how you're going to hit people, and then
Appreciate it. Yeah, TBI sometimes kicks in.
Yep.
So we were talking to him last night, and I asked him, I said, hey, if anything, what would be like the one thing that you would attribute to that, to being able to like be so like skyrocket in your growth, right? Like you're talking, this guy's like rocket fuel, rocket ship kind of growth.
The hockey puck right there.
Yeah. And we're just like, what would be that defining factor? And he actually, so inside of our membership site, we call it level 2. We have a training where basically it walks you through customer avatar, which is the marketing term for it. We call it your dream customer. And that training, what it does is it allows you to get laser focused. Like you actually name the person. They have a name. That's how detailed you get with who you are serving. Yeah. And once you get that locked in, like all of our successful students do, every decision you make after that it's no brainer, because you're doing whatever best serves that person. Yep. If it doesn't serve them, you don't do it. If it serves them, you move forward, right? And then you just listen to what they're saying to you, and you just keep giving them what they're asking for. And that's all he's done. And that's what he said. He's like, I just figured out who I was going to serve, and then I should have been doing everything I can to serve them ever since. And boom, he doesn't need a lot of clients, but he just needed the right clients. And that's exactly what he did.
That's badass. That's awesome. So your presence, you're obviously there, but do you have social channels where people can follow you? What have you got going on, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. You can find me. You can type in Chris Celeste or Christopher Celeste. You're going to see 2 different profiles. One's personal, one's business. And then I'm also on YouTube as well, Instagram. I'm not really big on Instagram. I'm more of a video guy, so you'll see me more on YouTube. We do at least 3 to 4 videos a week on YouTube through OVF. Some of them are training, some of them are success highlights, some of them are interviews. And then Facebook as well is probably where you'll get the most action from me. It's where I make most of my connections, most of my business is on Facebook, so that's where I spend a lot of my time. But yeah, Operation Veteran Freedom is the name of the group on Facebook. It's a free group as long as you're a veteran and a business owner. There's lots of different ways and channels to get a hold of us. You type my name in on social media or Operation Veteran Freedom, you'll probably find us.
And of course, you're going to send me your list. We're going to put it all down at the bottom where, if you weren't taking notes, you're driving and you're listening to this, you'll be able to get to a stopping point, look at the drop downs, and we're going to be able to hook you up with Chris. And I imagine there's a lot of people that know veterans, so it's kind of almost like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You might have some people like, hey, I heard it from a friend, that then and my cousin, and then boom, go talk to this guy. He'll help you out. So that's fantastic, brother. This has been just a friggin' kick-ass interview, man. I love it. I love the energy. I love your mission. I love what you're doing. I love the American flag. I love the don't tread on me.
Yeah.
Good kick-ass shit. You and I immediately connected, and it's amazing mental work and getting that mental game going with insight. So as far as next steps for you, what do you see? What's your short-term goal, your medium-term goal, and where do you see yourself in 10 plus years? So into this year, what are you looking at? What's the next 2 to 5, and then what do you plan on doing in the next 10, maybe 10 years down the road? Let's just kind of look at your crystal ball, see what you got in mind for yourself.
Yeah, I love it. That's not something that I get asked very often. So I'm big on this. I like to plan these things out. So by the end of this year, we would love to have, and we will have it. COVID's the only factor that would stop it. Our very own OVF live event, get everybody together, celebrate, do some trainings. Right now, what we do is the OVF scholarships, 10 veterans per class into personal development. So, in July, we'll have some OVF people, some OVF veterans who will be paying for them to go to the event, scholarship for their service. Thank you for their service. Help them out. So that's kind of the focus here in the near future is more live events, more getting them in person, getting them to start really meet us and work on themselves a little bit more. Then, from there on, it's just continue to grow the memberships. Like I said, we're at 2,000 veterans strong right now inside the group. And so we'd like to see that number continue to grow the success. Personally, we'd like to start a 2-comma club, much like you see with like a ClickFunnels or other companies out there, where it's, you have people who are out there really just out there making big success of themselves and kind of make them kind of their own inner circle. And then turn around and help as many veterans as we can. So everything that we're doing right now is really just engineered towards getting more education in veterans' hands and then getting more in-person experiences with them, because we want to start really getting out from behind these cameras like we've been forced to for the last year, and really start shaking hands and swapping stories again. Because I don't ever want to say that the VA didn't help me in some ways, but if there was ever a way the VA did help me, it was putting me in group therapy with other veterans like myself, right? That one-on-one stuff where the pretentious armchair therapist is telling me all the shit that I should be doing when they don't know shit about combat or stress. That to me just didn't sit right. But when I'm sitting with other veterans in a room and we're sharing, that was kind of the benefit for me. So getting us closer to doing more stuff like that again. Ultimately, what I would love to see in the next year, so not this end of this year, but the following year, would be a fully stacked out annual convention. So what we do this year, we'll make another one next year, make it our annual convention, and literally have 2,000 veterans in the audience for that, and then just keep growing from there. More scholarships to personal growth and development, more high level coaching is where we're moving towards as well. And then constantly making sure that the education, the value we are providing that's getting them results right now stays relevant. Because as you know, and maybe a lot of your listeners know, we're dealing in one of the most fastest evolving industries in the history of our planet. The internet, what's working yesterday might not be working today and could be gone tomorrow. And it's like, you just have to be on top of these things. And if you think that you can create a training for Facebook ads and have it work, a year from now, you're fooling yourself. And so, just making sure that we're always providing the most up-to-date, valuable content. And that's why I think that, our live trainings are so valuable. So just full throttle ahead, brother. Keep growing the numbers, keep helping more veterans, and keep adding more and more business owners to the 2-comma club.
There you go, man. Well, hey, I love the seminar thing, because we because of COVID and all that stuff, we had a lot of Zoom meetings, and you meet people, and it's hard to get close when you don't have that in-person, interaction. The other thing is you just don't, if you have any experience, you can realize it, but excitement and mental vibes is infectious. I mean, when you think vibes are coming out of your head, energy's coming out of your head. And when you got other people and light bulbs are going off, man, it's fantastic. It's contagious, and there's nothing like it. You've got a really good presence. I can't wait to follow you, see where you're going with this. I'm a big Chris fan, and man, you know, this is great. You're doing good work. So you're going to send me all your stuff. Is there anything you want to leave off before we sign off with one of my favorite performing podcasts to date? So I appreciate it.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you again, brother. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be on here and share a little bit of myself, get to know you a little bit deeper. You know, sharing myself and with you. Love to connect with you a little bit more, off camera some more too as well. You know, just really thank you. And you know, if I would just say anything to the viewer, you know, if you're listening to this, then obviously you're exactly like we are, right? You think like we do. You know, you've got a fire inside you to create more for yourself. You've got a passion to keep yourself healthy so that you can live your best life. You either, you know, spiritually, mentally, or physically in some way trying to better yourself. And what I would say to you is if you are taking action, then continue to take action. Because here's the thing, consistency is going to be key, and you might not see the result you're looking for today, but it will come. You know, sometimes it could take weeks or months, but the consistency is going to be the key for you. So just stick with it and blow your own mind. And if you're the kind of person who's sitting on the fence, who's listening to this because you want more, but you're not taking action, nothing's going to change until you do. And so action is going to be the only thing in your life that's going to allow you to create something different. Same choices, same outcome. Different choices, different outcome. And so if you want more, then go out there and get it, because no one's going to give it to you.
Damn straight, man. Everyone has the same 24 hours, right? So it's up to you to carve out your own success story. Hey, brother, honor and a privilege. Thank you so much. This has been kick-ass. It's been super great to get to know you better. And I can't wait to be friends for the rest of our lives, brother. So
absolutely.
Take care. Thanks. Reach out if you need anything, and I'll do the same.
Will do, brother. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
You too.